Misfits, and we're back again to help you change the game and kick ass in your careers.
Yeah!
So today we have another guest on our Getting Real segment. Oh, hey!
It's a real doctor this time.
This is Dr. Priya Nalkur-Pai. Oh, that sounds so official. Pavi, tell us more. Who is?
Yes, she literally has a degree from every possible Ivy League school. So what have you done today, guys? She is an ex-fitness instructor turned executive coach. She's like the ultimate misfit in the Indian community. Also, she has a degree from Yale and a doctorate from Harvard. So yeah,
No
guys, please go back into your caves. You know, you're not doing anything good today. She's also been an advisor to us for a long time, and we are so excited to have her on the show today. She is the founder of the Roundtable Institute. It's a big, giant powerhouse of women coming together to share stories about leadership. So, did we miss anything, or should we go kill ourselves because we haven't gotten a degree from any of those schools?
I think you got it.
So, Priya, on Tuesday we talked about the whole METOO campaign, and we've been talking this entire month about women's issues. And so, one thing that we've realized when we've had personal conversations with our spouses or male friends, they tend to see this as they tend to approach it very logically. And so they have a hard time either understanding, why it's a big deal that we feel violated, or why sexual harassment or sexism is something that bothers us so much. And also, even if they do, they have a hard time empathizing. So we don't want to make this sort of an us versus them thing, but how do we engage them in conversation, enable them to empathize and understand what we're talking about?
I think it's such a great question, right? So I think the first lesson I would say is if we expect to be listened to and empathized with, then we need to do the listening and empathizing as well. Okay? So one way I would think about listening is we listen all the time, and many of us think we're great listeners. But there's actually multiple ways in which we listen. I'm going to talk about two. So one is when we're listening, we're relating the information we hear to our own experience, right? This is when your doctor is giving you feedback on your blood work or whatever. You need to be listening in that way. Another way in which we can listen is when we're not making it about our own experience and we're actually tapping into what's going on over there on the other side of the conversation. Who is that person? What are they talking about? What are they not saying? What are the distractions in the space? So if we want to expect to be listened, we better be listening in that way. So we're not relating what they're saying to our own experience, because that can start to make us feel defensive or make it about ourselves.
Yeah.
We're actually trying to have a collaborative dialogue here, right?
Yeah.
And empathy, I would offer a new definition of empathy. I think many of us think about empathy as putting ourselves in the other person's shoes, and then when we can't do it, we get upset. Or we think we can't relate to the other person. So I would offer that empathy is an attempt to understand what the other person is feeling. When you take on the perspective of an attempt, you're more likely to ask about their experience. You're more likely to ask curious questions.
Right.
You're more likely to throw your agenda away and relate to the other person.
If one of us was talking to a male friend and we were telling him this story about this horrible thing that happened to us, and he was like, okay, I understand, but I can't empathize. I think the reason that he thinks he can't empathize is because he hasn't been in that exact position, right? So what you're saying is, rather than thinking, wait, I haven't been in this exact same position, you can start to at least, I guess, get halfway there and be like, well, I'm trying to think about why this is hurtful to you.
Yeah, so let's back it up then, right? So even before you get to the point of listening and empathy, I think it's really important to set an expectation and an intention about what you're doing in this conversation.
Yeah.
So it might be as simple as saying, hey, listen, I want to tell you about something that's happened, and I just want you to listen.
Okay.
Or you might say, because many men are quickly wired to want to solve your problem.
Yes.
Right? And they get value from that.
Correct.
And it's often not helpful to us.
Yeah.
So we might say, listen, I know you want to help me by solving this problem, but the most helpful thing you can do right now is just hear me.
Yeah.
Or you can also set an expectation. Here's what I want from you. I want to tell you about my experience, and I want you to try to figure out what it's like for me. Or share an experience that resonates with you.
So what about when men feel like, oh, you're just being a feminazi, and they feel attacked? Because I have seen them get immediately defensive in a lot of cases.
And they should. I would worry if they didn't get defensive. It means they're not personalizing this, right? Yeah. We as women can say, listen, a natural, normal, and expected reaction to anyone talking about sexual harassment is going to be that you might feel slightly defensive, right? You're a man.
Yeah.
You kind of represent that group that's being implicated here, right?
Yeah.
So it's normal to feel defensive, and I will understand if you show up that way. Because then you don't get defensive. And then you make it safe for him to get defensive if he needs to be. But by calling it out ahead of time, he's less likely to be overtly defensive.
Because I have actually heard that exact response that, I'm always like, why do you get defensive? And when I'm having a conversation with my husband, and he's like, you don't understand. When you say this stuff, I feel somehow like complicit because I feel like I'm representing every man out there, and I feel like on the one hand I've never done anything like this, but I'm responsible for everyone.
Yes, and that we should understand that, right? And also, if they can't solve the problem, they're going to feel incredibly defensive too. So another thing I think we can do is when we talk about sexual harassment, it's very tempting to just talk about harassment and not the people involved. So there's a concept that we talk about at the roundtable where it's called focus on the person, not the problem. When you focus on the problem, it's really tempting to go into problem solving talk.
Yeah.
When you focus on the person, you're going to ask, well, what was that like? What did it feel like?
Right.
Here's what it was like for me. We talk from our own personal experience, which cannot be debated.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you were going to talk to your husband about something that happened at work. So if I was focused on the problem and not on you, I might say, oh, Nami, just go talk to your boss or just go ignore it, right? If this is going to happen, just ignore it and you'll be done with it, okay?
Yeah.
But if I was focused on you instead of the problem, I might say, man, that must have sucked. What was it like for you?
Yeah,
right? So I just mirror exactly what she's telling me and follow up with a question. So the other thing I was going to say is if we expect men to behave in a way that they're listening and empathizing, then we need to practice that and model it for them. Instead of telling them how to empathize with us, we need to demonstrate it by saying, hey, what's it like to not be able to understand me? Right? Ask them that question. That might be really frustrating. Tell me what it's like that I tell you about my sexual harassment 12 times a day.
And you just don't.
And you can't relate. What's that like?
Yeah.
What a huge question. Imagine getting them to talk from that perspective.
All the men in my life are running away now. They're like, God.
Yeah, I think we need to start a conversation with as many men as possible.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to be willing to have the conversation. We need to be willing to share our message, right? So let's get clear on what our own personal message is.
Yeah.
Practice it with our girlfriends. Just get some real feedback from your girlfriends about it.
Right.
And then go and do some behavioral experiments. And what I mean by that is go tell a bunch of men.
Yeah.
Have one-on-one conversations with them.
Yeah.
And stay unattached to the outcome. If they get defensive and it's terrible, walk away.
Yeah.
Try it again with someone else. The more we can have these conversations, we invite more dialogue from them.
Yeah.
We can't expect
that's
them
what
to
it's
initiate.
about. Yeah.
Because as humans, all we want is to be seen and heard. And I think men can sometimes feel like we're getting all the seeing and hearing, and they're not, especially in this space.
Yeah.
when we invite conversation, it needs to be a dialogue where we're also seeing and hearing them.
I don't think we could have picked anyone better to have this conversation with, because, you know, all your work with human development and management and all this stuff, I think you're able to pull a lot from your experience and really shed like a unique light on this topic.
Yeah, Nami, you never told me Wonder Woman was on the set.
Goes right here.
Yeah, but thank you so much for being on the show. This was amazing.
Thank
We
you.
love you, Priya. So this is our little version of Purd Hapley's Ya Heard with Purd.
That is the end of this story, and we're gonna stop talking now.
All the guys went, yeah.